not a rock, not a statue, and not carved by any human hand. Recently, a fresh laboratory analysis finally answered a question that had puzzled the world for years. And the strangest part didn't come from a tomb or a temple. It came from a single lump of stone that refused to obey the rules of how fossils are supposed to form. Who pulled a creature with its skin still on, its armor still locked in place, out of the black sand of an oil mine 110 million years after it died. Not a carving, not a hoax, not a monster from another world. For years, the internet has been trapped between wild theories, and a new wave of testing has dragged this brown, spiny, three-dimensional animal back into the spotlight. Because the true story is stranger than any legend you've been told. So let's explain it. It begins on March 21, 2011, in an oil sands mine north of Fort McMurray, in the Canadian province of Alberta. A heavy equipment operator named Sean Funk was working the Suncor Millennium mine, driving an excavator through soft earth, when his bucket struck something that would not break like ordinary rock. At first he thought he'd hit a large boulder, maybe a petrified tree, but when he looked closer, he saw strange circular patterns ringed in dark, walnut-brown stone. He stopped the machine. His supervisor, Mike Grattan, took one look and knew this was not a normal rock. And here is why that first guess matters so much. For years, everything pulled from these ancient seabeds had been marine reptiles. So Dr. Donald Henderson, curator of dinosaurs at the Royal Tyrrell Museum, expected the same. A plesiosaur, a sea creature. But his senior technician Darren Tankey stood at the cliffside and saw the truth. This was no marine reptile. This was a land dinosaur, an armored one, and it had somehow ended up 8 meters up a cliff of stone that was once the bottom of an ocean, and that is where the mystery detonates. This animal was around 110 to 112 million years old, from the early Cretaceous, making it the oldest dinosaur ever found in Alberta. In life it stretched about 5.5 meters, roughly 18 feet, and weighed around 1.3 metric tons, close to 3,000 pounds. Even as stone, the block they lifted from the cliff still weighed about 2,500 pounds. It was a nodosaur, a tank of a plant-eater, covered in rows of bony plates with long bullhorn spines jutting from its shoulders. But none of that was the shocking part. The shocking part was that it still had its skin, its armor, its scales, even sheaths of keratin, the same material as your fingernails, still wrapped around its plates. Most dinosaurs reach us as flattened, scattered bones. This one arrived in 3 dimensions, so complete that scientists stopped calling it a fossil and started calling it a dinosaur mummy, the best preserved armored dinosaur ever found, and one of the finest dinosaur specimens on Earth. So how does a land animal end up perfectly preserved at the bottom of an ancient sea? The answer is almost cinematic. Researchers believe this nodosaur was swept off a riverbank by a flood, carried out into open ocean and sank to the seafloor. There, in dark water with almost no oxygen, nothing could scavenge it, and nothing could rot it. Minerals crept into its skin and locked the entire animal in place, like a statue cast by the ocean itself. And into a moment exactly like this, the most famous man on the internet once walked. Elon Musk has flirted with ancient mystery theories before. On July 31, 2020, he tweeted 4 words that detonated across the world. Aliens built the pyramids. That post collected over 533,000 likes and more than 93,000 retweets. And it dragged every buried mystery back into the spotlight at once. Because every time science digs up something it cannot instantly explain, the same reflex returns. It must be aliens. It must be fake. It must be beyond us. Egypt did not take that tweet quietly. The country's chief archaeologist, Zahi Hawass, fired back that what Musk said was completely hallucination, and Egypt's Minister of International Cooperation, Rana al-Mashat, publicly invited him to come see the truth for himself. And that same reflex is exactly what this armored mummy quietly destroys. Because the truth needed no aliens, just an unimaginable amount of human patience. The block went to the Royal Tyrrell Museum, where a technician named Mark Mitchell spent over 7,000 hours, nearly 6 years of his life, slowly chipping the stone away from the skin. The skull alone took him about 8 months. When scientists finally described the creature in the journal Current Biology on August 3, 2017, they gave it a name that honored that patience. Borealopelta markmichelli. Borealopelta means northern shield. Markmichelli was for the man who freed it grain by grain, and then the animal started to speak. By studying pigment molecules called melanosomes still trapped in its skin, the paleontologist Caleb Brown and his team could read its color in life, a reddish brown, darker on top and lighter beneath. That pattern is called countershading, and it is camouflage, which means something staggering. An 18-foot, 3-ton armor-plated tank still needed to hide. The predators of the early Cretaceous were terrifying enough that even this walking fortress evolved to disappear. Then they opened its stomach. Inside sat a mass the size of a soccer ball, the best preserved dinosaur stomach ever found. Its final meal was overwhelmingly ferns, around 85%, chosen so selectively that this giant was clearly a picky eater in a forest full of options. There were swallowed stones, gastroliths, from pea to grape size to grind its food, and about 6% of that last meal was charcoal, meaning this animal spent its final days grazing on fresh green regrowth in a forest recently swept by wildfire. From the ripeness of those ferns, scientists even pinned down the season it died: late spring, early summer, 110 million years ago. And the research has not stopped. As recently as 2025 and 2026, scientists are still calling this Dinosaur a Rosetta Stone for dinosaur biology, saying it offers game-changing insights into Cretaceous life that no pile of bones ever could, down to the color of its skin and the flavor of its last lunch. Which leaves the most human question of all: not who visited us from the stars, but what we keep missing right under our own feet. This animal sat in that ground for 110 million years, in a place we mine for oil, and it survived only because of a flood, an airless sea, and one operator who chose to stop his machine and look closer. It was almost lost on the way out. The block cracked under its own weight as they lifted it. Then one man gave 6 years of his life to a single fossil. So no, not aliens, not a hoax, not a creature beyond understanding. Just a plant-eating dinosaur that hid from monsters, ate ferns after a wildfire, drowned in a spring flood, and waited 110 million years for a heavy equipment operator and a museum technician to carry it back into the light. We keep reaching for the stars to explain our mysteries. And every so often, the ground reminds us that the most unbelievable story is the true one. That's it for today.